Okay, page 182, chapter 6, defining functions. So here we're getting results from a function. And what we're going to do is we're going to compute both the sum and the difference of two numbers, and we're going to return two different return values in the return statement. And so when calling this function, we're going to place it in a simultaneous assignment. That makes sense, right? And here are the Python docs. You'll be spending a lot of time on this URL, potentially, if you're interested. There are a lot of resources that you would use to go along with, whatever book you're reading. And certainly programming is no exception. I always recommend, having other books available, dictionary, thesaurus, different, you want to have your resources, right? You want to have your resources at the ready. You don't just want to keep your brain really, really tight, and just narrowly focused. I mean, obviously you want to only do what's in the scope of the assignment. And you don't want to go beyond in terms of what you're supposed to know, in terms of what you're, if you're turning in a homework assignment or, try to create an algorithm, which is the instructions of a program or the actual program, the actual code. But at the same time, it's still nice to have tools and resources. If there's something that you missed in the book, and so, just looking in other areas, to figure it out. That's really what it's all about. It's like figuring it out, trying to store it in memory, and obviously get your assignment done. So let's go to Atom, and let's do def sum diff. So this is going to be x comma y. Those are going to be our parameters. So sum gets x plus y, and then diff gets x minus y. So we're going to return sum diff, right? So you have two return values. Now we're going to do num1, num2, and this is on page 182. Eval input enter two numbers, num1, num2. And then s comma d. All right, so they're going to allow us to enter two separate numbers. I like to put a colon there. All right, and then we're going to call our function sum diff, num1, num2. So we're going to, that function call now becomes, it's also in the same line as an assignment. So s comma d is the return values of this function call. So num1 is obviously going to be the sum, and that gets assigned to s. And then num2 is obviously going to be the diff, and that gets assigned to d. And then we're going to print them out, right? Yeah, print. So the sum is s, and the difference is d. And I always like to do that. So plus the period. Okay, so we're going to have a space because of the commas and no space because of concatenation. I think we should be good. All right, so let's run this in idle. I like to scan through the document also, just visually, while I'm, like waiting, if I'm waiting for this to open or whatever. Like I try not to waste time or be anxious or be, it's all about learning, right? Like everything, if you're focused, if you try to focus as much as you can within the context of learning, I think it's really helpful. I have to admit I didn't always focus when it came to like, reading books. I usually would, but sometimes I daydream a little bit and then forget where I was and have to go back. Um, but I find that when it comes to stuff that's mathy, that I'm able to focus a lot more because it's just a lot of data and details that are extremely important to remember. Um, plus reading seems kind of leisurely. I don't know. I'm not gonna like psychoanalyze why that happened, but I just find that I try not to let too much, too much of this stuff. I try not to skip over it because all these little things are important, right? We have to remember eval and the parenthesis and then the close parenthesis. I mean, it's just a lot of it's practice, but again, a lot of it's just like looking and double checking. So even while I'm waiting for stuff, I still like to look and sort of go over the details to try to get that in my brain because it's all about that memory. Because it's not really a story we're trying to remember. We're trying to remember like syntax and what works and what doesn't, and data type and error types, and etc. So okay, so what did we learn here? We're learning that the function can return two different values, and then how to store those, how to assign those values, and then how to output those values for the user. All right, let's run it. So it's two numbers. So and then the parenthesis, the comma, tells the user to put them inside commas. So let's do 2 9. Oh, I guess not. So I didn't make it really clear. What I want to do then is I want to go here. I want to go and I want to make it super clear to the user. So that space, I think, is what we're supposed to do. It's the space. So see, when you put a comma here, the user thinks to put a comma between the numbers. And so I'll just put a space. So it's a little bit different from the book, but I think that the user is just going to follow instructions. I think that would be a little bit helpful if we did that. So sum diff. All right, so I think that that's going to work because we're going to put the numbers between spaces. So it's going to be 3 and then 9. Oh, we keep having this mistake. I keep having this mistake. All right, so let's... I don't know if it's not working here for... I like the simultaneous assignment. Let's see if I'm doing anything wrong. Eval input. It should be fine. So the other thing I like to do is I like to go to idle and just like poke around. I'm having like little hiccups. So let's do x. Let's do x gets 5. Let's do x comma y is 5. No, let's do 4 comma 6. So x 4, y 6. Okay, cool. So that's what I thought it would do, right? Sometimes I like to practice this stuff and see what I think it would do. Now let's see, x comma y gets eval input, enter. So enter. So x comma y. So let's do 4. No, the enter doesn't work. Let's do the same thing. X comma y gets eval input, enter. Okay, so now we're going to do 4, 8. So x 4. I think it was the space. I don't know why we had a headache on that. That should work. Okay, so we're going to put a comma here, and we're not going to do any space in between that. Yeah, but I like to use that sometimes just to poke around a bit. All right. So num1, comma num2 without a space. And let's run it. So 2 comma 7. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the mistake is my plus. It's line 8. Actually, that was all fine. I was reading the wrong error. I was kind of reading too fast. Let's not worry about this right now. We're fine. But I was reading it too fast. All right, so let's. It's still helpful though. I mean, it's still a good exercise. And then it reminds me like what that multiple simultaneous assignment does, and then how flexible is it, and it works exactly the way I would think it would work. It's like x comma y gets 4 comma 6. That assigns 4 to x and 6 to y. So I like that, but I was reading too fast. Okay, so here we go. Let's run it. I'm not going to sweat the. All right, so let's do. Let's see if this works. No, it doesn't. So it is a problem. All right, we'll do with a comma. That's fine. I don't think the space is going to be a problem though. Yeah. Okay. Hypotenuse is 14. 5 minus 9 is -4. So, and this is, I guess we're taking a lot of time for something that's really simple, but it's just it's sort of the process, I guess. But anyways, yeah. So that was page 182, and then we'll do 6.5.2 functions that modify parameters. Professor Zelle also talks about the if functions without a return always hand back a special object denoted none, and sometimes you get this none type complaint, none type and plus none type and none type if there's an error, and it says if your value returning functions are producing strange error messages involving none, check to make sure you remember to include the return. So a print is not a return, obviously. They are different. So let's do page 184, and let's do add interest. So let's add interest. Balance rate. We'll just put this, conflate this on one program. New balance gets balance times 1 plus rate. Balance gets new balance. But then when we write it out, or then when we print it out, the amount, it prints out 1,000 because it didn't even go into their local variables. Unless we have a return statement, it's a local variable. We can't get in there and use that. So I think we got to return the balance. Yeah, the new balance. Yes. So let's do that. All right. So that's essentially what he was talking about. And you can read that on these pages. Okay. So return the new balance. So now that's not just a local variable. Now that's a global. Now it's accessible because the return variable or the return statement, we can now access new balance. We can access the information in that function all across the program. So then we call it later. So now we have another function up here called test. And then amount gets 1,000. Rate gets 0.05. Amount gets add interest. Amount rate. And then print amount. Now we're gonna call test down there. And then add interest. Test. This calls our test. We do add interest dot test. Let's check it out. So in sum diff dot pi. Even though we should have created a different one, it's all right. We're doing it all in one. Okay, let's do it. See if it works. Okay, 4,6. Oh no. Function object has no attribute test. Yeah. I think it's because they added an IRB. Function object has no attribute test. That makes sense. I was a little bit confused here with this thing. Well, let's just call test. I don't know if we can do. I think that might work. So what I'm thinking about right now is the fact that if we call test, it's going to run test. It's going to print this amount, right? But since we didn't return anything, there's nothing really to do with it after that. But we want to use add interest. So let's what do we do with that? So let's return the amount. Right? Let's return the amount here. And then we're going to print test down here. Okay. So that's going to print our amount. And then that's going to be balance times the rate becomes 1 plus rate. I wanted to do add interest. So let's do add interest. Let's print that. And we're going to create our own. All right, and then inside of that is going to be our balance and rate. So that's going to be let's call that let's just call this 1000. And then comma. Okay, let's check it out. And again, it's just sometimes it's just practice. I mean, this is part of 186. It's not the programming exercises, but you know, we still want to make sure that we get our stuff going. So we have a couple of different problems right there. Okay, cool. So what we did, let's just go over what we spit out. So the sum is 9, right? This function, sum gets x plus y, so 4 plus 5 is 9. The difference is -1, 4 minus 5, it's 4 minus 5, -1, and then we return those. We printed that, the sum is blank, the difference is blank. Now here we printed the test. So we go into the function of test. There's no, remember, the parenthesis, these functions, they take 0 or more arguments. So this is 0 arguments, it becomes 0 parameters. So amount gets 1000, rate gets 0.05, amount gets add interest amount, comma, rate. So it's going to be, so we're actually going to call this here. Oh, that's what we were doing. Okay. And then I made up a new one here down here, but okay, this is fine. So the amount gets, and this is a function call here. So the amount and the rate, 1000 and 0.05. Now that gets that gets put in here, spit out our new balance. So then amount gets new balance. So we're going to return a new balance, and that new balance is 1050. Now at 1000, if at the rate at 0.09, it's 1090, right? But if it was at 0.05, it'd be 1050. And we could do it here. If we change it to 0.05, right? This is doing exactly outside of the functions. You know, this is just using the add interest with the balance rate. This is showing that, look, this is inside this, and this goes inside that and takes these two values and places them in here. Amount, balance, rate, rate, does a math, returns new balance, and then that comes out here. So amount gets the new balance value from the add interest return, that interest function return. And then we're going to return amount, which is actually return new balance from that function. So let's do one more. Well, let's just do this one more time. Let's just change this to 5, and you'll see. So let's just do 4 comma 6 comma 9. 15 and -3, 1050, 1050. Okay, hopefully that was helpful.